I am so excited to share my latest resource, downloadable print your own flashcard decks. These have been created following my many years working with children of all abilities in the clinical setting. And my themed flashcard decks work. The kids love them because they're engaging and they encourage movement, learning, coping skills, and just plain fun. From dinosaurs to Halloween, each deck includes suggested and themed centering techniques, warm-ups, guided meditation, relaxation, yoga-based movement, and games. Each card in the deck includes multiple yoga-based practices to choose from, meaning you can enjoy a different experience each time you play, and there will always be something that's suitable and accessible for the child you are working with or the setting you are working in. These are highly adaptable tools, and they work in the classroom, hospital, office, or home setting. Download and print on card or paper stock of your choice and enjoy creative, adaptable, and accessible adventures for many years to come with children of all abilities and in all settings. I promise you will not regret adding a set of 2 of these to your resource collection. And keep checking in. I have created a lot of these decks over the many years I worked in the clinical setting with children of all abilities, and I'm slowly updating and releasing them to the public so that all children can benefit from these wonderful tools.
Hi, this is Lisa Roberts from Yo-Yo Yoga School, introducing Movement, Meditation and Mindfulness, a training program for pediatric professionals, educators and parents. This is session 19 in this webinar series, and we'll be covering creating movement, meditation and mindfulness sessions that are inclusive and beneficial for children of all ages and all abilities. In previous webinars, we have explored developmentally appropriate and developmentally supportive movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions for children for each developmental stage. And while I do recommend, if you have the ability to separate kids out in groups by their developmental stage, that is the most ideal situation. However, there is nothing wrong with creating and offering group sessions for mixed age ranges and mixed abilities and designing sessions that are fun, safe, engaging and inclusive. And that's what we're going to explore in this webinar. In future webinars, just to touch again on mixed abilities and offering sessions for children who may have disabilities or developmental differences, we will be focusing in future webinars on how to create one-on-one sessions that are therapeutic. And that are targeting specific needs for the child. However, this session is about including children in general sessions that are for all children, just so that we're being inclusive. So this is not targeting specific needs for that child if they do have a disability or special need. It's teaching with awareness to that so that they can be included in a general session. So I just want to be clear about that. That subject will be approached in future webinars where we will learn techniques to support children of different abilities. But in this session, again, just to repeat, we'll be exploring how to create sessions that are inclusive so that we can involve and include all children and keep them safe, but we're not targeting specific outcomes. So let's take a look at how we can plan effectively so that we can be super prepared and able to meet the needs of all children in our session and foster an environment of inclusivity in our movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions. So let's start with considerations for mixed age. Now, if we have a broad age range, we're going to have a broad range of developmental ability. So being aware of physical ability and what is engaging. So how can you approach developmental differences, the physical developmental differences? Being ready with modifications, adaptations, and being aware of your language, how you offer these different modifications of a yoga-based stretch or a body movement. So I like to offer choices to kids and allow that freedom for kids to explore things that may be a little bit out of their range, but me as the teacher being prepared to step in and assist as needed. So engagement. If you've got a broad age range, what engages a child of 2 is going to be very different to what engages a child of 12. So I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Planning flexibly. Being prepared to change your session as needed. And this involves being prepared with multiple activities, alternate themes, and just having a bunch of different things up your ideas and plans up your sleeve, and even being ready to shift and adjust those as needed according to what the children who happen to show up at your session need. So it could be to meet the needs of the age range, if it's balanced in a different direction to what you planned. If you've got alternate activities up your sleeve, then you can quickly and swiftly switch it out and meet the needs of the children who are in your session. So multiple activities, alternate themes, and having the flexibility. Being super prepared is very important. So the more prepared you are, the easier it is to do this. So more prepared you are with extra activities, alternate themes, lots of ideas. You can go in, start your session, and then flip it up according to the needs of the children who happen to be in your session. And now the broad age range and engagement. So I find that older kids will feel a little bit goofy and silly doing some, and very self-conscious doing some of the goofy and silly stuff that we do with younger children. So how I shift this energy is I partner older children up with the younger children as assistants and to help them. So this helps with communication for both the younger child and the older child. It helps to develop and strengthen the communication skills. It helps to develop social skills between the older child and the younger child, respect. And it also, and very importantly, helps to develop leadership skills for the older children. I have never had, in my 10 plus years experience working with children and movement meditation and mindfulness, I've never had an older child reject this concept. And I can't even think of an example where I didn't see the older child really get into it and have nothing but fun. They have a total blast doing this and helping a younger child in the process. And I've really never seen an older kid not get caught up in the theme with the younger child and find that sense of play and inner child in themselves as well. So this is what works when we're working with mixed age groups. It really, truly works. So themes, when you think of themes, you want to think of a theme that is appealing to a broader age group. So when I think of like beach adventure or theming around different sports, this has a broad audience. Star Wars, Harry Potter, superheroes, adults love those things. So, you know, it does appeal to younger children and it will appeal to the older kids. Educational general knowledge, bringing some educational aspects into it. You still want to be educating children about their bodies and what works and mindfulness, and you can still theme to educational, just being aware of, you know, the developmental variations and what children will understand. Younger children are little sponges, so even if it is geared, the educational aspects geared a little bit towards the, say, elementary age or tween group, the younger children are going to be picking things up, and that's okay too. You're planting little seeds. So it doesn't really matter if it's not targeted to the younger children in your group, if there are younger children, but just being aware that you can introduce educational themes. And again, this comes back to your planning and preparedness. If when you're in the moment, you notice, hey, this is going over, you know, too many kids' heads and not understanding it, they're getting frustrated, then you can switch your activity or switch your theme or back out and focus on something else. So that comes with that flexibility as well and seeing what's in front of you. But my point here is you don't have to shy away from educational or general knowledge themes. Pretzel cards are a great tool. These are by Tara Guba and Baron Baptiste, I believe. So I'm just showing you the cover from the deck. These are a great tool that you can use that are appealing to kids. They definitely work for a broad age range, and I find them a fun game to incorporate. There's also a toy that I don't unfortunately have with me today. I left it at work, but it's called Yoga Dice. So that's another game where you can roll the dice, and the poses that you're going to explore show up through this game. And these are fun tools that kind of they create a sense of fun and foster a sense of fun because they're colorful and playful, and the same with the yoga dice. It's a game. However, it appeals to a broad age range. And now let's look at games. We've explored games in previous webinars. So any of the air sports games that we covered, the golf, the basketball, any of the group games such as hula hooping or the island game, or focus-based activity games like pencils. These work for a broad age range of children. Crafts that you can include mandalas. You can get very simple ones for younger children and right through to complex ones for older kids and teens. Snow globe meditation jars, eye pillows, origami, again, simple folds for younger children, more complex for older, and of course the option to partner up and have kids help each other so younger ones may feel confident exploring something a little more complex with the help of an older child. And again, remember, we're talking about groups. So if there's a group, you as a teacher don't have the ability to sit with each individual child if they're having trouble with their fold. So if you have that older child that you can partner up and assist a younger child, it really truly helps you as a teacher too, as well as the benefits we just mentioned for the children themselves. And that allows you to explore things that may be a little bit out of the child's developmental stage when they have a helper that can help them one-on-one. Breathing beads are another great craft that's also a mindfulness activity that has a broad appeal in terms of age. So just taking your time when you're planning, thinking, okay, who does this appeal to? Will this appeal to younger children and older children if I have mixed ages show up to my session? Is this something I can adapt easily if I get some younger children, or vice versa if I get some older children? So it comes back down to being prepared and planning. And these are just a few small examples. There are tons of activities that you can do that can either be modified or that already appeal to a broad age range. So let's talk a little bit about considerations when we're thinking of mixed abilities. Now what I'm about to talk about, this does apply to mixed age range, because as we established earlier, if you have a broad age range, there will be a broad range of physical ability in your session, in your class anyway. So planning this way can be very helpful. So how do I plan sessions that flow flawlessly for a mixed range of ability? I start by including stages for each stretch, and I present this as choices. I never want to single a child out and be, well, you can't do this, so you do it this way. Never want to do that. I offer any stretch or activity or posture, I'll offer a few different ways, demonstrate a few different ways, and offer them as choices. So, for example, I'm just pulling a random superhero. So if we're doing a specific superhero, I'm seeing there's a picture of Batman on my wall, so I'll use Batman. I would say this is Batman doing this is his mask, this is Batman's cape, and this is Batman flying over Gotham City. So maybe I'll show it, you can try each one of those and see which works for you, or you can choose which one you would like to do, or which one works for you. And I'm going to go into a little bit of an introduction in a little moment that is a very inclusive way to introduce your session and what to expect in your session in general. But as you're going through, I'll let if it's either the stages of the same posture as a choice or a couple of options as a choice. And we're going to explore this in a lesson plan in just a few minutes as well. So to plan a smooth and sequential flow is also helpful, especially if you have kids with a broad range of mobility and functionality. So how I do this, and I teach large groups of children with disabilities during summer camps, and this is the method that I have come up with that works very, very well. So I plan my sessions so we're minimizing the need to constantly shift the body. We'll begin in seated. So we do all of the seated meditation, stretches, breathing techniques. And then we move to seated or standing. And I demonstrate both, and it's offered as a choice. Then we move to prone. So after we're done with all of the seated stuff, we move to seated or standing. When that section is complete, we move to prone. So then everyone gets to their belly if that's accessible to them. And we do all of the prone stretching. And then we move to supine on our backs. And we do any of the stretches, final stretches on the back. And then from there, we move straight into final relaxation. So we eliminate that up, down, up, down, up, down that's typical in a more traditional style yoga session. So seated or standing, prone, supine, and then final relaxation. If there is a large group, if there is a broad age range, having trained assistants to help is ideal and highly recommended. It's impossible to keep your eye on every child when there's a large group and keep everybody safe. If there are more needs for modifications and individual modifications, it's impossible for you to assist every child at the same time. So having a trained assistant is very, very important. In terms of working with special needs kids or kids who may need some extra help, either for developmental delays or physical mobility restrictions, I highly recommend having the parent, a caregiver, or a volunteer who is familiar with the child's body to assist them. Now, that also goes, and we'll talk about this in future webinars, when you're working with a child one-on-one, it doesn't eliminate that in the beginning. When you start working with a child who has specific needs, to work with someone who is familiar with that child's body is helpful for you to learn how to work with them safely. And this applies in large groups as well. You always want to, if a child is coming and you're ready to go, you've got an inclusive session, it's a general session for all kids, kids of all ages, all abilities, you want to invite the parent or caregiver to stay and support the child. You can still offer the modifications, but they can keep the child safe while you're watching the entire group. So that's very important. I can't stress that enough. So let's talk about movement for mixed abilities and mixed ages. So movement can be adapted for every body. Doesn't matter about the developmental stage, doesn't matter about restrictions. There is always a way to modify everything. This is why I love this practice so much. It's really suitable for every single person. It just takes a little bit of outside of the box thinking and research and study and understanding the true impact each stretch or movement is making on the body, and understanding how you can modify that, and then coupling that with understanding the body, or the way the body of the child moves and what their needs are, their individual needs are, and coupling that knowledge together. So educating yourself is very important. Being comfortable offering modifications, being comfortable offering adaptations, learning how to offer instead of a pose, the final stage of the pose, but different stages, and then presenting these as choices. Preparing with options for all abilities. So just like I showed you, structuring your session that way is helpful, but also as you're doing your planning, being aware, hey, this, what I'm offering may not work for everybody. So I want to have some other ideas in my mind as well, or in my planning. Offering choices so no child feels singled out. So I just mentioned that earlier. You never want to be, oh, you can't do this, or this is for you. Just if you offer it as a choice, that is just a much kinder way and a more inclusive way And this also allows other children who may just not feel like doing the traditional way another option, and seeing, hey, there are, in a way, it almost opens minds up. And I'm going to hold off. I was about to talk about my introduction, but I am going to hold off until that slide comes up. We'll continue focused on movement before I digress. But there is a very nice way that I introduce the session so children understand that they have choices throughout, which I think is a very important lesson and skill for children to develop, that knowledge that, hey, I do have a choice. I do like to include some challenging options for older kids so they do benefit from the practice beyond the communication and the basic movement, meditation, and mindfulness. And again, this is peppered in as a choice. And then because I'm doing that, I always want to make sure that I'm prepared to assist kids who may want to try something that's out of their comfort zone or out of their boundaries or a little bit beyond their developmental ability. And that can be something as simple as offering myself as an assistant or support, being willing and able to step in with modifications or props like a chair or a wall, or partnering up again with another child so that they can explore something that may be a little bit out of their realm. So that's just something to keep in mind too. You want to still be able to teach to the older kids and younger kids and allow that safe place where kids can explore something that may be a little out of their comfort zone. But definitely in terms of safety, you being ready to step in and help as needed. And again, it comes down to observing, really being aware and ready and watching as best you can. And that brings me back to assistance. If you've got assistant that can really support children who need the extra help, you are able then to keep your eye on everybody and jump in and offer your help and your expertise and your knowledge to truly make sure the whole experience is safe for everybody. Verbal and non-verbal instruction is important. So watching and observing as much as listening. And then in terms of your teaching, making sure you're in a place where all children and all assistants, those assisting, can see and hear you well, especially when you're demonstrating the stages or choices for each part of your session. We've already discussed fostering a non-competitive and an inclusive environment, I should add, and empowering older kiddos to support the younger ones. It's actually magic when that happens. It's a really wonderful thing to see these kids working together. So meditation, how does meditation apply for a mixed age range? How can we make it fun and still help kids learn meditation, but appeal to a broad age range? Focus-based activities work well. Guided meditation and stories still work well, even for the older kids. Again, just kind of like when we discuss themes for the general session, this applies for if you're doing a story. So, you know, a teen or tween may not be excited over a magic carpet ride, but maybe a superhero meditation. So just finding what works for your group and something that would be a nice common ground for a guided meditation or story. The scarves or mirroring game works well. The pencils game works well. These again are focus-based activities that can be a lot of fun and have an appeal to a broader age range. And then the shush game is a nice one where we're starting to learn to come in wood and quiet. And the bell game would also be a really good one. If you're not familiar with these games, I invite you to go back to previous webinars where we cover games, where we cover meditation for kids of all ages, and we cover active meditation, reflective meditation, and breathing techniques. These are all games and focus-based activities that are featured in those webinars. So I invite you to go back and review some of those if what I am saying right now does not make sense at all. So mindfulness, how can we teach mindfulness and incorporate mindfulness in a session when we're working with kids of all ages and abilities? We're moving mindfully, we're breathing mindfully, we're including mindfulness games, and then involving all kids in discussion and reflection throughout the session and planting those seeds. Some of the older children may process and understand exactly what the mindful movement is, or the mindful breathing, or the games. Younger children may not, but we're still planting the seeds. Younger children may not be able to link movement to breath, which we've discussed before, but you're giving those cues anyway, and one day it will fall into place when they are developmentally ready for that. So here's a sample introduction that I use when I'm introducing a movement, meditation, and mindfulness session to children of a broad age range and mixed abilities. So today we're exploring different ways to move our bodies, breathe, and feel great. Remember, we're all unique. Our bodies have had different experiences, and the way each one of us moves can also be different, and that's okay. I'll demonstrate different ways to move, and you can choose which feels good to you. If it doesn't feel right, or you simply prefer to watch, that's okay. Just enjoy the story and follow the instructions to breathe, and you'll still be getting oodles of benefits from our session. So that's a nice, inclusive way to present the idea, hey, I'm going to show different ways, and you get to choose, and if that just doesn't feel right for you, you can do the breathing, follow the story, you'll still be getting the benefits, and just join in whenever you feel like it or whenever it works for you. And this is the way I always introduce my summer camps, again, where I work with large groups of kids with varying abilities, and it works. I also, in a situation like that, the example I just used, working with a large group where I have volunteers paired with each child. If I get there early and I walk around and I talk to each volunteer and tell them, explain how it's going to work, the structure, the seated standing, the prone, the supine, the relaxation, and remind them that to assist their child to adapt according to their body, what is safe, and that if a position or something I'm offering doesn't work for their child, or their child doesn't want to do it, then they have the option just to help the child follow the breathing, follow the story, and join in when it does work for them. So here's a sample class for mixed age and mixed abilities. So I've gone with the superhero theme today. And you'll see we have the introduction or discussion that ties into superheroes. And then we move on to meditation. So we do a little meditation in the beginning that links to what a superhero truly is, and to allow children to reflect on superheroes who may be around them. And then we move into the warm-up. So you can see we start with the seated stretches and how they relate to superheroes. And then we move on to the movement adventure. And this is where I start to introduce seated or standing. And you see for each one, each superhero, I have a seated and a standing modification. And then, so we're offering both, and it's a choice. And then I move down to prone, and so we're moving to our bellies now. And these are some more superhero-themed stretches that are accessed on the belly. And then we move to supine, and we've got, again, superhero-based stretches that can be accessed from the back. And then we go straight into our meditation as a superhero guided relaxation that I do. And then we've got an activity or game that we can do either at the end or at the beginning of that session, whenever it's suitable. And again, it relates to, I've included the shush game here, but it relates to Superman or Supergirl's ability to have super enhanced senses, which is what we become aware of in the shush game. So you can see how I've created like the superhero. It's a great broad age range appeal theme. And then we've set it up so that it can flow flawlessly, but there's not a lot of up, down, with a broad variety of stretches and postures and breathing techniques, but even still a fun story. You know, if a child is not participating in a certain stretch, they can follow the breathing and think of the superhero, so that it still has that level of engagement. And this session is about 45 to 60 minutes. And it does appeal to a mixed age range. And I've used this specific class plan a lot in my summer camps over the years. It's one of my most popular ones. So that's a perfect example of how you can plan for a large group of mixed ages and mixed abilities. So just to recap before we wrap for today, movement, meditation, and mindfulness for all children. So when we're planning for all kids, we want to focus on fun. We want to incorporate beneficial practices for the child's development. We want to be safe. We want children to be safe always when they're exploring movement, meditation, and mindfulness. We want to keep them safe. We want it to be educational. We want kids to learn about mindfulness, about how to control their bodies, self-regulation skills, and also educational in the sense of any themes that we're incorporating. Kinesthetic learning is a really great way to learn, and even if a child is not a kinesthetic learner, to practice something that we're learning visually, through visual or auditory learning in the classroom, to reinforce those subjects through movement can be a lot of fun for children too. Encouraging and empowering kids, like with these life skills, with helping others, with learning social skills, is all are very, very valuable tools. Thinking outside of the box and being flexible is important for you to help support these children, and be prepared for what we've discussed today, having mixed age range or mixed abilities in your class. Being prepared is another vital tool to helping you create sessions that are inclusive and beneficial and safe for all children. Offering choices, very important that nobody feels singled out, and we're still fostering that environment of inclusivity. And being prepared to help, knowing how to safely modify or offer alternate adaptations for everything you offer. So everything you're planning on demonstrating and showing, if you know how to safely modify it, you will be able to help all children. Now, in future webinars, we will be exploring how to safely adapt a lot of the basic yoga-based stretches we learned in earlier webinars. So if you haven't seen the earlier webinars on the fundamentals of yoga-based stretching, I highly recommend you do so, because moving forward in the next several webinars, we're going to move into adapting in the clinical setting. And part of that will include adapting for the chair, adapting for the bed, and then we'll go on to adapting for different diagnoses and different situations. So I highly recommend you have the basics before we move on to how to adapt. And then we're going to tie it all together, and you'll have that knowledge to go out there in the world and make a huge difference with the children that you work with. So that ends our session for today. As I mentioned, the next session will be exploring movement, meditation, and mindfulness in the clinical setting. So that webinar will be covering the benefits of incorporating movement, meditation, and mindfulness in the clinical setting for inpatients and outpatient populations. We'll explore how to identify and meet patient needs, how to empower patients and families while they're navigating the medical system, and the health benefits the benefits of movement, meditation, and mindfulness for those facing health challenges. So I hope you join me, and I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon.